The camera opens with a haunting close-up, stacks of Zimbabwean banknotes piled like bricks, their denominations climbing absurdly from thousands to millions, billions, and finally trillions. The sheer weight of paper money fills the frame, yet its value is almost nothing. Cut to the streets of Harare, where citizens clutch bags of cash, their faces weary and anxious, just to purchase a single loaf of bread. The scene shifts to empty supermarket shelves, long queues winding outside stores, and desperate families waiting for hours, only to find essentials gone. The narration begins with a piercing line, imagine needing $1 trillion note to buy a single loaf of bread. This is not fiction, it was Zimbabwe's reality. The words hang heavy as the visuals juxtapose the nation's proud past with its devastating present. Once hailed as the breadbasket of Africa, Zimbabwe's fertile lands produced abundant maize and tobacco, feeding millions and fueling exports. Yet now, the same nation is drowning in economic chaos, its currency reduced to worthless paper, its people forced to barter goods or rely on foreign money to survive. The camera lingers on the human-told children unable to attend school because fees are unaffordable, pensioners watching their life savings vanish overnight, and shopkeepers refusing to accept Zimbabwean dollars, demanding US dollars or South African rand instead. The narration sharpens the tension. How did a nation of such promise collapse so completely? Was hyperinflation the result of reckless leadership, external pressures, or deeper structural flaws? The hook drives home the central question, pulling viewers into the drama of a financial catastrophe that became one of the most extreme cases of hyperinflation in modern history. The imagery intensifies: wheelbarrows of cash rolling down dusty streets, banknotes scattered like confetti, and citizens burning currency for warmth because it was cheaper than buying firewood. The audience is left stunned, compelled to understand how a country that once symbolized agricultural strength and independence could unravel into economic ruin. The hook sets the stage not just as a story of numbers, but as a human tragedy, a cautionary tale of how fragile prosperity can be when trust in institutions collapses. It leaves viewers gripped, eager to uncover the forces political, social, and economic that transformed Zimbabwe's promise into one of the most infamous economic disasters of our time. When Zimbabwe emerged from colonial rule in 1980, the air was thick with hope and promise. The nation inherited some of the richest farmland in Africa, vast reserves of natural resources, and a reputation as the breadbasket of the continent. Tobacco, maize, and wheat flowed from its fertile soil, feeding millions and earning foreign currency that seemed to guarantee prosperity. Independence carried with it the dream of self-sufficiency, of building a modern economy that could stand proudly alongside the world's strongest nations. For a time, the optimism felt justified. Schools expanded, healthcare improved, and agricultural exports brought in steady revenue. Yet beneath this promise lay fragile foundations. Political patronage, corruption, and growing inequality began to erode the stability that Zimbabwe's leaders had promised. The seeds of crisis were sown early, but few could imagine how devastating the harvest would be. This video will trace Zimbabwe's journey from the heights of economic strength to the depths of hyperinflationary collapse, a descent so extreme that banknotes worth trillions became worthless overnight. It will explore the cousin's land reform policies that crippled agricultural output, reckless monetary expansion that destroyed trust in the currency, and external pressures that magnified the crisis. But beyond the numbers, this is a human story. Families who once thrived on fertile farms were left destitute. Children dropped out of school as fees became unaffordable, and pensioners watched their life savings vanish in the blink of an eye. The collapse of Zimbabwe's economy was not just a financial disaster. It was a profound social tragedy that reshaped the lives of millions. The tone of this journey is urgent and dramatic, but balanced, weaving together documentary authority with the raw human drama of survival. By the end, viewers will see that Zimbabwe's hyperinflation was more than a local crisis. It was a warning to the world about the fragility of economic systems when trust, discipline, and accountability are abandoned. This introduction sets the stage for a story that is both cautionary and deeply emotional, reminding us that prosperity can be undone in a heartbeat. and that the lessons of Zimbabwe echo far beyond its borders, into the very heart of global finance. In the years following independence, Zimbabwe stood as a beacon of promise in Africa, blessed with fertile land and a strong agricultural base that earned it the title of the breadbasket of Africa. Tobacco, maize, and wheat flowed from its fields, feeding millions and fueling exports that brought in foreign currency and optimism. The early years showed stability, with schools expanding, healthcare improving, and a sense of national pride growing stronger. Farmers harvested abundant crops under the African sun, and the nation seemed poised for prosperity. Yet beneath this surface of success, hidden problems were already beginning to erode the foundations. Political patronage and corruption seeped into institutions, inequality widened, and whispers of discontent grew louder as land disputes simmered beneath the surface. What looked like a thriving economy carried within it the seeds of collapse. By the early 2000s, those seeds burst open with the land reform crisis. The government's seizure of white-owned farms, intended to redistribute land to the majority population, devastated agricultural output almost overnight. Farms that had once been highly productive fell into disarray, exports collapsed, and the backbone of the economy was broken. Faced with deficits, debts, and the cost of military involvement abroad, the government turned to the printing press, flooding the economy with money to cover its shortfalls. What began as a desperate measure spiraled into disaster. Hyperinflation took hold with terrifying speed. Prices doubled daily, wages became meaningless, and savings evaporated in the blink of an eye. Ordinary citizens carried wheelbarrows of cash to buy basic goods. Children were forced to leave school because fees became unaffordable, and families resorted to bartering goods instead of using currency. The collapse of trust in money itself was complete. By 2008, Zimbabwe reached the peak of chaos, with inflation estimated at an unfathomable 79.6 billion%. Shops refused to accept Zimbabwean dollars, people turned to foreign currencies or barter, and the economy ground to a halt. In 2009, the government abandoned its own currency entirely, adopting the US dollar and South African rand in a desperate bid to restore stability. Prices finally stabilized, but the relief was mixed with despair. National pride and sovereignty were shattered, and the scars of collapse ran deep. Poverty spread, emigration drained the nation of talent, and distrust in institutions became ingrained in society. Zimbabwe survived, but the cost was immense, leaving behind a cautionary tale of how fragile prosperity can be when political decisions ignore economic fundamentals, and how quickly a nation's promise can unravel into ruin. Zimbabwe's hyperinflation was more than an economic failure, it was a human tragedy, a collapse of trust, and a warning to the world. What unfolded was not simply the destruction of a currency, but the erosion of hope itself. As families watch their savings vanish, wages lose meaning, and the very idea of money become worthless. It revealed how fragile economies can be when political decisions ignore fundamentals, when institutions break down, and when leaders choose short-term survival over long-term stability. Inflation did not just eat away at numbers on a page, it consumed the dreams of a generation, forcing millions into poverty, driving many to emigrate, and leaving scars that still shape Zimbabwe's society today. The final image lingers, abandoned banknotes scattered like confetti, once symbols of wealth now reduced to trash, fading into shots of today's modest but stable markets, where resilience and survival have replaced despair. It is a reminder that even after collapse, nations endure, but the scars remain as lessons etched into history. As this story closes, viewers are called to reflect on the universal truth it reveals, that unchecked policies and broken institutions can turn prosperity into ruin, and that vigilance is essential to protect the value of money everywhere. Zimbabwe's hyperinflation is not just a chapter in African history. It is a cautionary tale for the entire world, a reminder that trust, discipline, and accountability are the true foundations of economic strength.